I sat quietly in the law office, watching my brother Marcus celebrate his theft. He was practically dancing around the mahogany conference table, waving our grandfather's will like a victory flag. If he hadn't been so caught up in his moment of triumph, he might have noticed my slight smile. "Did you really think Grandpa would leave anything to you, Sarah?" Marcus sneered, straightening his expensive tie. "You're just the family disappointment. The one who walked away from the family business." Our parents nodded in agreement from their seats across the table. Mom dabbed non-existent tears with her silk handkerchief, while Dad stared at me with that familiar look of disapproval. They'd always favored Marcus, the good child who followed the expected path. "I'm sure your grandfather had his reasons, Mr. Patterson," the family lawyer said diplomatically. He shuffled his papers, clearly uncomfortable with the family drama unfolding in his office. I maintained my silence, thinking about the other set of papers sitting in my office downtown, documents showing that I now owned 78% of Blackwood Industries, my brother's precious company. While Marcus had been busy schmoozing our grandfather and plotting to cut me out of the inheritance, I'd been quietly buying up shares through a network of shell corporations. The irony was almost too perfect. Marcus thought he'd won by manipulating our dying grandfather into changing his will, but he had no idea he'd already lost his company to the sister he'd just disinherited. All the shares in Blackwood Industries, the family estate, and liquid assets totaling approximately $50 million will go to Marcus Blackwood. Mr. Patterson continued reading. "To Sarah Blackwood," he paused, looking uncomfortable. "To Sarah," Marcus interrupted with a smirk. "Our grandfather leads his collection of old books. How fitting." I reached for the box Mr. Patterson handed me. Inside were my grandfather's precious first editions, books he'd shared with me during quiet afternoons in his library. Marcus had always mocked our grandfather's love of literature, considering it beneath him. He never understood that those afternoons weren't just about books. "Thank you, Mr. Patterson," I said quietly, standing up. "Is there anything else?" "Running away again, Sarah?" Marcus called after me. "That's what you do best, isn't it? Just like when you abandoned the family business." I turned at the door, allowing myself a small smile. "I never abandoned business, Marcus. I just chose to do it my way. 10 years ago, I had walked away from Blackwood Industries, refusing to work under my arrogant older brother. Our grandfather had understood, even if no one else did. While the family wrote me off as a failure, I built my own empire in secret. Phoenix Capital, my investment firm, had grown into one of the most powerful forces on Wall Street. We operated through a complex web of subsidiaries and holding companies, keeping my name hidden from public view. I had specialized in acquiring undervalued companies, turning them around, and selling them for massive profits. But Blackwood Industries? That one I kept. I spent 5 years quietly accumulating shares, watching Marcus run our grandfather's company with his trademark combination of arrogance and incompetence. The only person who knew the truth was grandfather himself. I remembered our last conversation just weeks before his death. He was propped up in his hospital bed, looking frail, but with that familiar twinkle in his eye. "They're going to read the will soon," he said, holding my hand. "Marcus has been pressuring me to change it, making all sorts of promises." "I know," I replied. "He's been bragging about it." Grandfather smiled weakly. "Let him have his moment. The books are what matter, especially the first edition of The Art of War. Have you read it lately?" I squeezed his hand, understanding the message. Inside that first edition was a letter, detailing everything he knew about my secret acquisition of Blackwood Industries. He had figured it out months ago, but kept my secret, watching proudly as I outmaneuvered my brother at every turn. Now, as I carried the box of books out of the lawyer's office, I could hear Marcus still celebrating behind me. He had no idea that tomorrow morning, Phoenix Capital would announce its majority ownership of Blackwood Industries. The press release was already prepared, revealing me as both the owner of Phoenix Capital and the new controlling shareholder of our family's company. "Sarah," my father called, hurrying after me. "Don't make a scene about this. Your brother knows how to run a business. You've never shown any aptitude for it." I turned to face him, thinking about the Fortune 500 ranking that listed Phoenix Capital as one of the most successful investment firms in the country. "Don't worry, Dad. I won't make a scene. Everything will become clear tomorrow." "What's that supposed to mean?" he demanded. "It means I learned more from those afternoons reading with grandfather than Marcus ever did in the boardroom," I replied. "Sometimes the quiet ones are the ones you should watch most carefully." I left them standing there, my brother's triumphant laughter still echoing down the hallway. In my car, I opened the first edition of The Art of War and found grandfather's letter, exactly where he said it would be. "My dearest Sarah," it began, "by now Marcus thinks he has won. Let him think that. You and I know the truth, that while he was fighting for an inheritance, you were building something far greater. I've watched you these past 5 years, quietly taking control of the company he thinks is his. I've never been more proud. Tomorrow, when everyone learns the truth, remember what these books taught you. The greatest victory is the one that requires no battle." I carefully folded the letter and started my car. Tomorrow would change everything, but tonight, I would let Marcus have his celebration. After all, it's always sweeter when they don't see it coming. My phone buzzed with a message from Lisa, my chief operating officer at Phoenix Capital. "Everything's set for tomorrow's announcement. The look on your brother's face should be priceless." I smiled, thinking about the carefully orchestrated plan we put in place. The press release would go out at 9 a.m. sharp, just as the market opened. By 9:01, Marcus would learn that his victory celebration had been premature. The company he thought he'd inherited, I'd owned it for months. The power he thought he'd won, it was already mine. And the sister he dismissed as a failure, she was about to become his boss. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving people wrong. It's about letting them prove themselves wrong while you quietly build something greater than they could imagine. I drove home to my penthouse apartment, the box of books secure beside me. Tomorrow would bring chaos and confrontation, but tonight I had these precious volumes, and the satisfaction of knowing that while Marcus had fought for an inheritance, I'd built an empire. Grandfather had taught me well. True power isn't about what you appear to have. It's about what you actually control. Tomorrow, everyone would learn just how much I controlled. And Marcus? He was about to learn that sometimes the greatest power lies in letting others underestimate you, just long enough for you to prove them spectacularly wrong. The next morning, I arrived at Phoenix Capital's headquarters at precisely 8:30 a.m. The sleek glass tower in downtown Manhattan housed my real empire, the one my family knew nothing about. At least, not for the next 30 minutes. "The press release is ready," Lisa announced, meeting me at my private elevator, "and the security team is prepared for any unexpected visitors." I smiled, knowing exactly who those visitors would be. "How's our stock looking?" "Up 3% in pre-market trading. The rumors about the Blackwood Industries announcement have investors excited." She paused. "Your brother just arrived at his office." Of course he had. Marcus always made a point of arriving early the day after any victory, usually to gloat. Today's gloating would be short-lived. My office occupied the entire top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a commanding view of the city. On my desk sat this morning's newspapers, all carrying the same basic story. Marcus Blackwood, the talented heir to Blackwood Industries, had secured his inheritance. The Wall Street Journal even quoted him calling it a natural succession. At 8:55, my phone buzzed. It was Marcus. "Dear sister," his voice dripped with false sympathy. "I just wanted to check on you. Those books must be quite a consolation prize." I put him on speaker so Lisa could hear. "Actually, I was just about to call you. You might want to turn on CNBC. There's going to be an interesting announcement at 9. "What are you talking about?" His voice sharpened with suspicion. "Just watch," I said softly, ending the call. At exactly 9:00 a.m., all hell broke loose. The press release went live simultaneously across all major financial news networks. Phoenix Capital reveals majority ownership of Blackwood Industries. Sarah Blackwood named CEO. My phone immediately exploded with notifications. Marcus was calling again, but I let it go to voicemail. Instead, I watched the stock ticker as Blackwood Industries shares soared on the news. Phoenix Capital's stock was up 7% and climbing. "Miss Blackwood," my assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Your father is in the lobby. He's quite insistent about coming up." "Send him up," I decided. "And when my brother arrives, which should be in about 10 minutes, have security escort him up as well." I stood at my window, watching the city below, thinking about how long I'd waited for this moment. The door burst open behind me. "What the hell is this?" my father demanded, waving his phone with the news alert displayed. "What have you done?" I turned slowly. "Good morning, Dad. Welcome to Phoenix Capital. I believe this is your first time in my office." He stopped short, finally taking in his surroundings. The expansive space, the elegant furnishings, the wall of awards and recognition that Phoenix Capital had accumulated over the years. This is your company," he stammered. "One of them," I replied calmly. "Though Phoenix Capital is certainly my largest success. Well, until today's acquisition of Blackwood Industries becomes public." "Acquisition?" He sank into one of my visitor chairs. "But Marcus, the inheritance?" "The inheritance was just shares in a company I already owned," I explained. "Grandfather knew. He'd figured it out months ago." The door flew open again. Marcus stormed in, his face red with rage, his perfect suit slightly disheveled. "You snake," he shouted. "You backstabbing little." "Security." I cut him off smoothly. "Please ensure my brother remembers his manners. This is a place of business." 2 large men in dark suits stepped forward, flanking Marcus. He shrugged them off but managed to control himself. "How?" he demanded. "How did you do this?" I walked to my desk, pulled out a thick folder. "Quite legally, I assure you. Through various shell corporations and investment vehicles, Phoenix Capital has been acquiring shares in Blackwood Industries for the past 5 years. As of last month, we own 78% of the company." But I'm the CEO," Marcus protested. "You were the CEO," I corrected him. "The board has already approved the leadership change. It was part of the contingency planning we did months ago." "The board?" Our father interrupted. "Richard and James would never." "Richard and James," I smiled, "have been working with me for over a year. They understood that Marcus's leadership was driving the company into the ground. The only reason Blackwood Industries still showed a profit was because I was quietly propping it up through subsidiary investments. Marcus lunged forward, only to be caught by security. You planned this. You manipulated everything. No, Marcus. You did that. You were so busy manipulating grandfather, so focused on the inheritance, that you never noticed what was happening to your own company. I opened the folder, spread out documents across my desk. Every bad decision you made, every opportunity you missed, every contract you bungled. I was there, quietly fixing your mistakes through shell companies and silent partnerships. Dad, Marcus turned to our father. You can't let her do this. But our father was staring at the documents on my desk, financial reports showing Marcus's mismanagement, records of failed ventures he tried to hide, evidence of his growing incompetence. All these years, Dad whispered, we thought you were the failure. You wanted to think that. I corrected him. It made you feel better about always favoring Marcus. But while you were celebrating his mediocrity, I was building something real. I pressed a button on my desk phone. Lisa, please bring in the new organizational charts for Blackwood Industries. Marcus's face went pale. New organizational. Oh yes, I smiled. There are going to be quite a few changes, starting with a complete audit of your executive decisions over the past 5 years. Lisa entered with a sleek presentation folder. I opened it, revealing the new corporate structure. Marcus's name was nowhere to be found. You're firing me, he choked. I'm giving you an opportunity, I corrected him. You can either accept a position as a junior analyst, or you'll learn how to actually run a business, or you can leave with a severance package. Your choice. This is our family's company, he shouted. No, I said firmly. It was grandfather's company, which you nearly ran into the ground. Now it's my company, and I intend to restore it to what it should be. I turned to our father. You're welcome to stay and watch the afternoon announcements. We'll be revealing several new initiatives that will transform Blackwood Industries into a modern, efficient corporation. Dad looked between us, decades of assumptions crumbling before his eyes. Sarah, save it. I cut him off. You can either accept the new reality or fight it. But I should warn you, I learned negotiation from the best. Those books grandfather left me, they weren't just for show. Marcus slumped in his chair, the fight draining out of him. You planned this all along, even letting me think I'd won the inheritance. Actually, that was grandfather's idea, I smiled. His last gift to me, letting you show your true colors one final time. I walked to my window, looking out at the empire I'd built. You have until the end of the day to decide, Marcus. Junior analyst or severance package. Choose wisely. As security escorted them out, I picked up Sun Tzu's The Art of War from my desk, the same copy grandfather had left me yesterday. Supreme excellence, I read aloud, consists of breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Lisa cleared her throat. The board is waiting in the main conference room. Shall we begin the real work? I smiled, setting down the book. Yes. Let's show them what Blackwood Industries can really become. The day that had started with my brother's triumph was ending with his complete defeat. But more importantly, it was ending with the truth finally exposed. The quiet one, the one they'd underestimated, had been the most powerful all along. And this was just the beginning. The weeks following my takeover of Blackwood Industries were exactly as challenging as I'd expected. While the business world celebrated the merger as a masterstroke, my family was falling apart in spectacular fashion. Marcus, predictably, had chosen the severance package. His pride couldn't handle working under his little sister. He'd stormed out of my office that first day, threatening lawsuits and revenge. But we both knew he had nothing. Every move I'd made was perfectly legal. I sat in what used to be his office at Blackwood Industries, now redecorated to my taste. The ostentatious mahogany and leather had been replaced with clean lines and modern art. Like everything else about the company, it needed updating. "Your mother is here," my assistant announced. I looked up from the audit reports I'd been reviewing. They painted an even worse picture of Marcus's management than I'd expected. "Send her in." Mom entered hesitantly, looking small and uncertain in her designer suit. Gone was the imperious woman who had dismissed my choices for years. "Sarah," she began, twisting her hands together. "We need to talk about what you're doing to this family." "What I'm doing?" I raised an eyebrow. "Not what Marcus did. Not what you and Dad did for years. He's your brother. He's devastated. He won't eat, won't sleep. He's facing consequences," I corrected her. "Probably for the first time in his life." I pulled out a file, handed it to her. "These are the reports showing how Marcus almost bankrupted grandfather's company. The only reason Blackwood Industries survived was because I was secretly propping it up through Phoenix Capital." She glanced at the numbers, then pushed the file away. "But he's family." "Yes," I agreed. "And family should have consequences too. Marcus had every advantage, every opportunity. He squandered them all because you and Dad never held him accountable. We just wanted what was best for him?" I finished. "No, you wanted what looked best to others. There's a difference." I stood up, walked to the window. The view from Blackwood Industries wasn't as impressive as my Phoenix Capital office, but I could see potential for growth everywhere. "Did you know grandfather came to me first?" I said quietly. "Before Marcus started pressuring him about the inheritance. He offered me the company outright." Mom's breath caught. "He what?" "I turned him down," I continued, "because I knew Marcus would never accept it. He would have torn the family apart fighting it. So instead, I built something of my own, something bigger." "But now you've taken the company anyway," she protested. "No," I turned to face her. "I saved it. From Marcus's mismanagement, from his ego, from his incompetence. I bought it fairly, through legal channels, using my own money. The fact that I let him think he'd won the inheritance? That was just poetic justice." A knock at the door interrupted us. Lisa entered with a tablet. "The quarterly reports are ready, and your father is in the lobby." I sighed. Send him up. Might as well deal with everyone at once. When Dad arrived, he looked older than I'd ever seen him. The past weeks had taken their toll on his pride. "The board approved all the changes," he said without preamble. "Every single one. They're calling you a visionary." "The changes were necessary," I replied. Marcus had been running this company on reputation alone. We needed real leadership. "And you think you can provide that?" The old condescension crept into his voice. I smiled, pressed a button on my desk. The wall screen came to life, showing Phoenix Capital's growth over the past decade. "I already have." Phoenix Capital is worth 10 times what Blackwood Industries is, or was, before I took over. My parents stared at the numbers, the acquisitions, the success they'd never known about. "All this time," Mom whispered, "while we were worried about you." "You weren't worried." I corrected her. "You were judgmental. There's a difference." I handed them each a folder. "These are the new family trust documents. I've restructured everything. Marcus will receive a modest monthly allowance, provided he agrees to financial counseling and signs an NDA about his management failures. And us? Dad asked. You'll retain your positions on the board, but as non-voting members, you'll have no direct control over either company. Dad's face reddened. You can't. I can. I cut him off. And I have. The papers are already filed. You can either accept the new arrangement or walk away with nothing. Your choice. They exchanged glances, decades of assumptions crumbling between them. Why? Mom asked finally. Why not just tell us the truth years ago? I picked up one of Grandfather's books from my desk, his prized first edition of Pride and Prejudice. Because you needed to learn what Grandfather taught me, that true worth isn't about appearances or inheritance. It's about what you build yourself. I opened the book to where a photograph was tucked. Grandfather and me in his library, both of us smiling over a chess game. He knew, about Phoenix Capital, about my plan for Blackwood Industries. He watched me build it all and never said a word to anyone. He understood that sometimes the best legacy isn't what you leave behind, but what you inspire others to create. And Marcus? Dad asked. Will you ever forgive him? Forgiveness isn't the point, I replied. Growth is. When Marcus is ready to learn, really learn, there will be a place for him. Until then, he can live with the consequences of his choices. My phone buzzed. The Hong Kong market was opening, and with it, a new chapter for both companies. Now, I said, standing up, I have work to do. Real work, not the performative leadership Marcus was so fond of. You can show yourselves out. They left quietly, clutching their folders, their world permanently altered. As the door closed behind them, Lisa entered with the latest market reports. Blackwood Industries stock is up 30% since the takeover announcement, she reported. The market loves the merger. The market, I smiled, knows what my family is just learning. That true power isn't about who you appear to be, but who you actually are. I looked at the photograph again, remembering those quiet afternoons in Grandfather's library. While Marcus had been practicing his executive swagger in business school, I had been learning real lessons about power, patience, and the art of the long game. Ms. Blackwood? Lisa interrupted my thoughts. The board is waiting for your presentation on the 5-year growth strategy. I stood, straightened my jacket. The time for family drama was over. I had 2 companies to run and a legacy to build, not the one Marcus tried to steal, but the one I'd created for myself. Send them in, I said. Let's show them what real leadership looks like. The sun was setting over Manhattan as I finished my presentation. The board members filed out, buzzing with excitement about the future. In just a few hours, I had outlined a vision that would transform both companies. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Marcus. I want to talk. I smiled, remembering another of Grandfather's lessons. Sometimes the greatest victory is giving others the chance to admit their own defeat. Tomorrow, I typed back. My office. Come ready to learn. After all, true power isn't just about winning. It's about knowing what to do with victory once you have it. And I had plans for both my companies and my family, plans that would make Grandfather proud. The books he'd left me sat on my desk, no longer just an inheritance, but a reminder that sometimes the quietest voice in the room is the one you should listen to most carefully. I had built an empire in silence, and now it was time to teach others how to do the same, starting with the brother who thought he could take what I had already earned. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning.